Today, Mavic 2 Pro Sharpest settings, a deeper look at how to achieve that tack sharp and best focus. Your focus is going to be sharper than this thumbtack. Hi guys, Felix here with Quadcopterguide, bringing you the best drone rumors, reviews, and tips. On this channel, I cover a lot of guides like this today, so if you're new here, please consider subscribing. And as always, all the products you see are linked in the description below. In this video, I will cover an overview of what all can affect focus or sharpness. I will cover some of the focus settings and modes of the Mavic 2 Pro, a couple of good tidbits in there. And I will also show you how I used to focus before making this video. I bet you a lot of you out there do the same thing right now. And then I will show you a couple tools that will help you make sure that things are in focus, and also some surprising findings from my tests. And then, of course, I will show you my system of how I make sure that all my footage is tack sharp. All right, let's get into it. Many settings can affect the perceived sharpness of drone footage. I kind of broke these down into primary and secondary groups. For me, the primary are the in-camera sharpening settings. For us, that's under the style menu, the aperture that we're shooting with, either for video or photos, and then of course of how the actual lens is focused. And the secondary for me of how we perceive focus or sharpness, that also consists of frame rate and shutter speed. That's how we control how much motion blur something has. So for me, that also has a little bit to do with perceived sharpness or focus. Today I want to cover lens focus, the best settings for the style menu, and how to achieve the most cinematic footage. That's something I'm working on as well in a separate video, so if you want to be notified of when that comes out, be sure to subscribe. And the best f-stop or aperture, and also what shutter speed you should be shooting at, I cover that in detail in my ND filter video, and you can check that out up here. So which focus modes or settings do we have on the Mavic 2 Pro? First up is AFC, or Auto Focus Continuous. It's supposed to focus automatically before switching to a new scene, and also it focuses before you start recording a new clip. The reason I don't like AFC is because you don't want the camera to autofocus at an inopportune time. And also just tapping the screen will have it hunt for focus, and then your whole clip is ruined. There's also a risk of imperfect focus due to low contrast or low light. Next up is AF, or autofocus. Essentially, this is tap to focus. We also have the issue if we accidentally touch the screen that it'll hunt for focus in the middle of a clip. And the same kind of warning about low contrast or low light also applies to autofocus. And finally, we have MF, or manual focus. When we enable manual focus, we get this kind of virtual focus wheel like this on the screen to help us manually focus. It's difficult to tell if you do have the sharpest or best focus. The screens are kind of smallish that we're using on these things, and the camera doesn't automatically zoom in like some of the bigger kind of DSLRs do when you're manually focusing to help you focus. Now, what I used to do to achieve focus is I would make sure I'm in autofocus mode, or AF, and then I would tap the screen to bring up that green little square, have the camera hunt and lock focus, and then flip it to manual focus to make sure that the focus doesn't change, and also me tapping the screen doesn't cause it to refocus. Now, the problem with this method is that if the item you're focusing on, if it's low contrast or if the lighting's not the best, then either it doesn't lock on focus, which is okay because then you realize it, but the drone could also tell you that it locked focus when in reality it's just a bit off or quite a bit off. So that's not very ideal. Now, surprisingly, on my Mavic 2 Pro, when I use AF or autofocus and I tap on something that has good contrast and the lighting is good, it locks on, but it's actually not the sharpest. Now, there's a couple of tools to help us achieve the best and sharpest focus. First up is focus peaking. This is when the subject that is closest in focus has that red outline to it. All right, let's jump into the Mavic 2 Pro here real quick and show you guys focus peaking, or peaking threshold as it's called in the menus. So you just hit the little settings wheel, go to peaking threshold, and you have a couple of choices. Low is kind of the most crazy one with the red colors. And when we switch to manual focus, you can see that the red outline of this fancy plant changes as we drag the focus wheel. The more red there is around a certain point, that means that it's getting sharper or the sharpest. So the goal is to pick your place you're focusing and getting as much red color on there as possible. And this is what the standard setting looks like. It's not as crazy as the low setting, but still has enough color to make it kind of easy to see on the screen. Another useful tool is that when you're in manual focus, on the virtual focus wheel, there is the little infinity symbol. Now, if you tap that, it should theoretically go to infinity focus. Now, there's been some reports that for some people, the infinity focus setting isn't actually true infinity focus, so it's something that you should probably just test on your own. Now, the best way to test this is record your screen of your display or your smartphone, and also record a live clip on the drone itself at the same time, and then later bring it into your video editor, line them up side by side or above and below each other, and then you can see which tick mark on this manual focus is actually the sharpest. That's what I did. You can review the results at 200 or 300%, and then it'll be a little bit easier to see if it's perfectly sharp or not. Now remember, infinity focus is when you get the background and the stuff in the way back of your picture or video to be sharp. This is like mountain ranges and, you know, just stuff in the distance. Traditionally, on a normal camera on the ground, you would just change the aperture to f/22, and then you know that a lot more things are in focus. Unfortunately, on the Mavic 2 Pro, we can't set it to f/22 because it only goes up to f11, but also, as I mentioned in that ND filter video, once you go too far above f4, the image just becomes incredibly soft, and for me that becomes unusable. So I just want to choose the sharpest f-stop and then play with the focus to get infinity focus. All right, so what is my system, or how do I achieve the best focus now after learning all these things? So if I'm doing an infinity focus type shot, that could be the drone's already in the air, I have a mountain range or something in the distance that I want to focus on, or if I'm doing a reveal shot and I want to, at the end, reveal this landscape, then I make sure the drone is up high enough when I do the focus before the reveal. I hit AF or autofocus, I tap on something with a lot of contrast, kind of in the background to make sure that that's what it focuses on. I flip to manual focus, and then I make sure that my infinity focus that I learned is really infinity focus is selected, or I just flip it to manual focus and I use the little wheel to pick that perfect setting. Those are the two things I do for infinity focus type scenes. All right, so for closer items than infinity focus, and what surprised me is that those windmills or power generators, you know, those things, they were actually the sharpest when I was set to true infinity focus. And those were only like 300-400 feet away. So from a drone's perspective, that's relatively close. The minimum focus distance of the Mavic 2 Pro is actually like only half a meter or a couple feet. So you can actually focus super close. If I want to focus closer than kind of where this infinity setting works, what I do now is I just hit autofocus. I make sure I pick something with contrast. If it's a super important shot, then I flip over to manual, and I will use peaking to help me out to make sure that it's as sharp as I can get it. All right, so the question of the day is, how do you focus your Mavic 2 Pro or your other drones? I'd really like to hear about it. Let me know in the comments below. If that video helped you out, hit that like button. It really does help me out. And if you want to continue to learn how to get the most out of your Mavic 2 Pro or other drones, then be sure to subscribe. Thanks. You know, focus so sharp, it's like, pow, right there. Take it, tack, tack. Sharp as a tic tac. Your focus is gonna be so sharp, it's gonna be sharp